Hello, everybody out there that's about to watch this video. My name is Kevin Johnson, and I'm going to give a testimony about the things that God has done in my life. A friend of mine, Zach, he had asked me if I would post a testimonial, and that's what I'm about to do. I'm originally from the state of Kentucky, and I'm currently in Arizona with one of my sons in the faith. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in this time that we're going to share together. Well, my particular story begins when I was 16 years old. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. Both of my parents were amazing, absolutely amazing people. They both worked full-time jobs. Of course, they had their struggles like anybody else. Alcoholism was the big thing in our family. But by the grace of God, that did change in time. When I was 16 years old, I had went to bed one night, and I can remember it was in the summertime. It was actually Saturday night. And in this dream, I can remember wrestling with this creature. It was like a disfigured, gnarled up creature. And it seemed like the harder I fought and struggled to get free from this creature, the further down I began to be pulled and the tighter I was squeezed. And I can remember the anguish I was experiencing fighting this. I had tremendous fear. And I remember looking around, and I was in a shack, and I was surrounded by everything that was broken: windows, ceilings, walls. It was just like living in poverty. I had this thought to cry out in my dream, and I did. I cried out, "Lord, help me." And I looked up, and all of a sudden there was no roof on this shack, and it was a bright, intense light that split the sky as far as the eye could see, east to west. All of a sudden there was this flash, an even brighter flash of light, and there was an image that came forth, and there was a hand that extended from the image. Now, in my struggle with this creature, I managed to get one hand free, and I had to really fight to get my shoulders to move upward, to get my arm up. And I was at the very end of it, as far as I could stretch, and I finally touched the hand of that hand that came forward from that image. And all of a sudden, the struggle completely stopped. The creature was no longer there. The anguish was no longer there. The shack was gone, and I had the sensation of being lifted up. I heard a voice, and I can still hear it today. Every time I think about this, it said, "Rise up and go." Now, when I woke up, I was crying. My body ached as if I had been in a physical fight. And remember, I was 16 years old at the time. So I jumped up, I ran downstairs, and I proceeded to tell my parents about what had just happened. Of course, they were passed out from the night before, partying hard over the weekend, and told me, "Go back to bed, you had a nightmare." Something in me just didn't sit right. So I got dressed, threw on some jeans and a shirt, and I went down the street to the local church. I can remember it. Corinthian Baptist Church was the name of the church in Newport, Kentucky. I can't tell you what the preacher preached, but I do remember this. At the end of the service, he said, "The doors of the church are now open. Who would like to receive Christ?" And I stood up and I walked down that aisle, and I received Christ for the first time in my life. Now, I had no idea over the next 5 months my mother and my father would get saved. My brother would be attending the service with my younger brother. So we all started going to church together as a family. And there were a lot of things in our home that just began to change. Now, during this time, as young as I can remember, there was another dream that I would always have, all the way up until my early 30s. And this particular dream, I would always dream going down the street, trying to cross a bridge, and the bridge would be broken, and I'd fall in. Now, mind you, I grew up on the river. I'm a river baby. So the bridge was just down the street from Kentucky to Ohio. So I would go down the street, and I would try to cross this bridge in this dream, and it would always be broken. I'd look down, I'd see fish swimming everywhere, and become fearful and wake up as I'm falling. This went on until I was in my 30s, my early 30s. And I remember one night going to bed, and I said, "I'm done being afraid. I'm done with this dream. I'm diving in the next time I have this dream. Well, sure enough, that night I had the dream, and I ran down to the bridge in my dream. Got on the bridge, of course, it was broken, and I dove in. That's right, I dove in. I saw the fish everywhere, but I dove in and I swam. And I can remember grabbing fish, all kinds of fish, big fish, little fish, and I was laughing and smiling, and I found myself crawling out on the other side of the riverbank in Ohio. I ran up to the bridge, and there were lots of people on both sides with hands extended out with smiles on their faces. And as I crossed the bridge, people began to cross on each side, shaking hands and meeting for the first time. The bridge was not broken, and I never had that dream again. Now, over the years, God began to reveal to me what these different things meant in these dreams. I'll focus on the latter dream. He showed me that he was going to use me to be one that would touch all types of men. The Lord had said he would cause us to be fishers of men. So he showed me I'd meet all kinds of men. It didn't matter what status of life they were in, but I would be one that would build bridges, and people would connect that normally couldn't connect. And it didn't matter their walk of life, where they came, their economic status. The Lord would reveal these things to me over time. Now, of course, as big as this sounds, it took time for my faith to develop just to even be able to receive the things that were happening in my life. There's so much I'd like to share, but I don't have enough time for that. And in the course of that time, I had spent 11 years as a chaplain of a ministry called the Lord's Gym. It was specifically for men. They'd come in, pay $10 a year for a membership, and they get to work out, but we would disciple men. We would do life with men. We would literally get involved in their lives. This leads me to why I'm in Arizona today. There's a young man that I had met when he was in the 8th grade, and I was his football coach. This was years ago. And, he was a troubled kid. He really was. He was one that I was even cautioned, you really don't want nothing to do with that kid. But I knew that, well, it's kids like that. That's why I was there at the school in the first place. So moving forward after that year, I hadn't seen this young man for about 12 years. He shows up at the Lord's Gym one day. This back in 2013. From that day on, his life was pretty jacked up. From that day on, he never left my side for 3 years. He literally was with me at the Lord's Gym every day from the time I opened the gym to the time I closed it. And I got the chance to really pour into this young man and disciple him and see what God would do in his life. Well, here it is a couple of years later. He and his wife have moved out here to Arizona, and they started their first ministry, their first church. God has done so many things over the years through discipleship. So for me, it's always been about relationship. When God forgave me of all my sins and he restored my life when I was in a place of hopelessness and despair, it caused me to have so much gratitude that I was even more encouraged to want to do the same for other people who were in a place of hopelessness and despair. Now, I've done many things for the Lord over the years as a chaplain, as an assistant pastor. I was ordained in 2008 at my home church, New Hope Christian Center, as an assistant pastor. And God has just done so many things through this fragile life. And I'm grateful and humbled and honored that he would choose somebody like me to love him and to love people. And so I'm excited I get to see one of my sons in the faith come this far. It's not about the resources that we can get from people, and it's not about the recognition. It's about the relationship. If you can get to a place where you genuinely love God and love people, he takes care of the rest. So that's some of my testimony, and I just pray that it blesses somebody, that it helps somebody. And always remember the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of every nation. God bless you.